Hey friend, welcome back to Hey Wait. It's so good to have you here. I'm Jay, and if you have been in the Hey Wait orbit for a while now, you know that this podcast is about learning to leverage the intelligence of your nervous system and your body to have a good experience of yourself in your relationships with yourself, with others, and with the stuff of everyday life that shapes your life. We've talked about relating with alcohol, food, energy, nature, money, all through this embodied trauma informed lens. And today, I want to talk about sex. And if you also spent your formative years listening to early 90s hip hop, you can appreciate how much I'm resisting the urge to throw down some salt and pepper lyrics right now. But I am going to spare you that and invite you instead to have a hey wait moment in your relationship with sex, especially where your nervous system might be getting in the way of experiencing pleasure in your body. My guest is Lisa West. Lisa is a physical therapist, myofascial release bodyworker, yoga teacher, and author of the book Follow the Feeling. She specializes in the nervous system, chronic pain, and facilitating gentle embodiment. And over the past few years, she's been bringing that same lens into sexual health and pleasure. I've known Lisa for about 15 years, and we ran into each other when I first moved here, and we were running the same circles, and we discovered that we were both yoga teachers and somatic geeks who didn't want to just talk about light and love, but also about shadow and grit and complicated real stuff. And I have been so grateful to have her as a part of my care team over the years because getting body work from Lisa is next level. She doesn't just work with the physical body or the energetic body. She has a way of working at the level of the spirit and soul. And it's so powerful. And it's possible because of her innate gifts, but also because of how committed she is to embodying the principles and practices she's taught now for 30 years. And I'm delighted to introduce you to her, especially now that her work is transitioning to helping women reclaim pleasure in a way that feels grounded, safe, and so very needed. In this episode, Lisa talks about how to slow down and actually feel what's happening inside of you so you can build a relationship with your body that includes pleasure and joy, not just functionality. This episode is going to be especially powerful if you feel disconnected from your body, stuck in your head, or dealing with chronic pain or anxiety, and you suspect it's getting in the way of you experiencing the kind of pleasure you know or you hope is possible for you. Hello, Lisa.
Hi, Jay.
Before we get into what you're here to share, I want to just take a moment and tell you how much I admire you and your work and how grateful I am for you. Because there have been so many times over the years where my body has been in pain or my nervous system has been whacked out, and I can come into your office and get on your table, and the way I experience it is that like you meet my body and my energy and my soul, and you let them do what they need to do to heal. You know, that there's this, you have a way of being able to communicate with the intelligence of my own system so it can do the thing that it knows how to do the best. And I just think that is such a masterful gift that you have. And I'm so grateful to receive it.
Thank you so much for that. I really, I think that is the path to healing, and you do it so beautifully as well, is meeting somebody where they're at and just, nudging into something that's maybe a little provoking, but not so
You've definitely
provoking that you're
provoked
going to
me.
break against it. It's
Totally.
mostly subtle, but like it's a little bit of
Yeah.
like, oh, here's a thing that's kind of intense, and I think that being present in that way and being able to it's so fun to work with someone like you who can really feel that in their body. But I hope that my work can teach people how to be there too and be present
Yeah.
with themselves in that way of that's gentle and kind and inviting versus pushing. We push
Yeah.
enough.
Absolutely. And I don't respond to being pushed. I get real angry when I'm working with a practitioner that does that. And actually, I also, before we get into it, I want to say to the person listening, I was thinking about this today, that the most masterful practitioners aren't necessarily the people with the biggest followings on social media or the most book deals, the most masterful practitioners are the ones that other practitioners go to. Do you know what I mean? Like every somatic coach, somatic therapist, body worker that I know in this area, they go to you. And that I feel like is what, if you're listening and you're like, who should I be going to see when it comes to, a practitioner in your community, ask the other body workers and practitioners who they see, because that's the one who's legit. And that's you.
Well, thank you. That feels like an honor to me. I really do feel like part of my dharma. There's, I think, a lot of pieces of it, but part of it is to really help people turn the volume of their lights up a little bit, to turn on their
Mm,
what they're already masterful at and what they're gifted at, and remember who they are a little bit more. Give them those glimpses and that silence of, oh yeah, I'm resourced to be able to do what I do in the world.
yeah. Yeah. You're giving that person the experience of themselves and their wholeness back so that they can replenish and go back to being who they are. I love that, at that brighter level.
Mm-hmm.
So you have been doing PT, body work, yoga for over 30 years now. And
Yes.
I'm really curious. Well, let me just say, I could talk to you about every single one of those, but I'm really curious to know what inspired you to make this shift to expand your work to have a focus on sexuality as well.
There's several things that brought me to that. I think probably the biggest one is that I'm in my midlife time. And when I was looking for people who knew something about midlife, the people who are forging the way are sexual medicine doctors and sexual health care practitioners that were kind of on the forefront of the hormonal shift.
Oh.
So that was one of the things, is just like, these people are onto they're tapping into something that's not happening very much. And they seem really innovative and amazing. They seem like an amazing community of
Mhm.
people. And then I realized, gosh, there really aren't very many people you can even talk to about sexuality in the healthcare field.
No.
Sometimes a pelvic floor PT will talk about it more than other people, but there's not a lot of it. Sometimes you're lucky and you get a urologist or an OBGYN that also will ask you about it, but it's not a topic that comes up in healthcare. So I figured, well, I can be another voice for that.
That I know you're going to list other things that got you
Yeah.
there, but I want to just pause there for a moment. I don't know that I had ever really thought about it that way. I've thought about how we don't necessarily talk sex and sexuality with many people in our life, maybe our closest friends or partner, but I hadn't really thought about that. There's not medical practitioners that we would necessarily be having these conversations with either. And it's such a huge part of our lives that goes in the shadows.
Yeah. Well, it's lived in the shadows
True.
for eons, especially for women. And, I think that's part of it too, is just this, there's a real comeuppance of women reclaiming themselves. And I
Hmm.
think that is also part of the reason the discussion about sexuality is starting to come into the world a little bit more in a bigger way.
Well, and can you tell me what sexual medicine is? Because I don't know that I've ever heard that
Well,
term really.
basically, it's just taking the part of your health around sexuality into the account when it comes to your health.
Hmm.
And as you said earlier, it's a very big part of people's lives. I remember hearing a statistic, and I am not good with remembering those kind of things, but it was basically like, when people are asked what they want to optimize later in life, sexuality is up in the top 5 for most people. Like, they want to be able to
Really?
still maintain a level of sexuality. These are asking young people, so things change sometimes as life goes
Sure.
on. But it's a big part of life, and it's a big part of our vitality and our connection to others. And um, so it deserves to have a place in the medical world and in the
Yeah.
psychology world and just in the world in general, in your conversations.
And so were you seeing in your practice of PT and myofascial release and body work that there were issues that were coming up for people that were inherently linked with their sexuality that you were like, I want to learn more about this? Or was it a different calling that brought you to that?
It was a little bit more of a different calling. Like I have a lot of people around my age as well. So we're having we were having some conversations around it in my practice, around libido changes and physical changes and more pain and things like that. It probably came more into my awareness with my yoga practice and with how I was relating in my own body. And through the years, I've had this sense in yoga, which I love. It's one of the greatest loves of my life is yoga. It will always be one of the greatest loves of my life. But I saw that there was a real leaning towards the rest of the leaning I see in the world, which is towards optimization and productivity and the yang and the becoming something better than you are part of things. And I know
That's my commentary.
exactly. It's a good commentary to have. But like I started to realize that we've kind of, even in yoga, where it's probably 85% women, I would say, that do yoga. When I'm in a class, generally that's what I see. And we're still not going into the yin and into the cycles and into the body as much as, or not, we're not honoring it as much. It's like it was still very pushed towards athleticism and all the things I just spoke of. And so as I got more into my body and in like, I realized that we don't always have to go up with our energy. We sometimes should go down. The apana vayu is the term they use for the downward flowing energy. And it's like, we have moon cycles, so we fluctuate in those ways. And I realized that our sexual energy is like part of that, and it's part of our essence. And the yoga is basically built for men originally, and a lot of the vinyasa classes were meant to sort of repress the sexual energy and move the sexual energy and transmute it. And I feel like women maybe don't need to do that as much. Like I felt like being in our pelvis, in our sexuality, might be part of our vitality, like staying more vital in the world and keeping us more connected to ourselves and to our world rather than trying to escape.
Yeah, you mentioned the apana vayu, that downward pulling of energy, and you talk about it a lot in the classes you teach and the book you wrote. By the way, here it is. If you're watching on YouTube, Follow the Feeling. Such a beautiful book where you really talk about your own experience of suppressing yourself and your emotions and your energy, and then coming into it through yoga. So I'm curious, if someone doesn't practice yoga, or even if they do, but they're not familiar with the more energetic aspect of it, what do you mean bringing energy down into the body?
Well, if anybody who listens to your podcast hears you talk about coming home to yourself, including yourself being in your body, and I think most of us are up here most of the time and not in our hearts, in our pelvises, in our bellies, in our intuition. And so instead of always doing practices that move us up, 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 even in the holistic world in general, like the things that expand your nervous system, cold plunges and breath work as we know it. And, pranayama can obviously do many things, but the kind that most people are doing are like the Wim Hof breathing. And they're all meant to stoke the fire and
go
expand,
like up and
expand.
big and
Yeah. And so getting calm, getting relaxed, feeling your body and what's actually happening in the moment in your body is like it's a radical concept to most of
As
us.
soon as you said that, I like my tongue softened in my mouth and my jaw got a little soft, and I could feel the bowl of my pelvis again. And it reminded me that through my own yoga practice, that I've known for decades that if I can feel my pelvis, I'm doing something right. Whether it's I'm trying to make a decision or I'm in a conversation with someone, it's like if I have awareness of my pelvic bowl, things are going to be okay.
Yeah. And there's a lot of us that don't have awareness of our pelvic bowls. And I mean, and my journey into sexuality in general is I am not like most people I'm finding in this field have very strong libidos. They always have. They're like, I mean, and I don't mean to generalize, but the people I've mostly learned from never had trouble with being in that part of their body, but I did. And it took me a while to like feel comfortable in my own skin enough to even know what I wanted, much less like come to arousal and all sorts of other wonderful experiences, the things that have made me more present in my own intimate experiences.
So that makes me think about zooming out, not just your story, but I'm happy to hear this aspect of it. What do most people or most women think their problem is when it comes to experiencing pleasure and sexuality? And what is actually the barriers?
Well, the things that people think are wrong with them are usually more ideas of what they're comparing themselves to based on what we see in the media or what we think is normal. And the truth is, there is a huge spectrum of sexual drives, of arousals, primarily women. And this is true across all genders, but there's more of a case in women where they tend to be more responsive in their desire versus spontaneous in their desire. So,
Mm,
we think we're supposed to like just have, be turned on at the drop of a hat and we want to, have a sexual experience. And that's not always the case. And we may have that for part time of our life, but
right.
for most people it varies and it fluctuates. Um, so like that's one is thinking that they should be a certain way around arousal and desire, and that they should always be the same around arousal and desire because things change and it's so complex. There's so many things that can get in the way of it. And there are so many great books and great practitioners and great resources to address this whole gamut of things that can happen. And so I'm just seeing like there's a little slice that I can help with, which is being in the present moment in your body and slowing down enough to actually feel what's true and to feel what's happening inside and to not be ashamed of it, like to realize that this spectrum exists and there's really nothing wrong with you. And that's probably the biggest thing that I
Hmm.
want people to know is that there's really not one way to be, despite what the media tells us.
Well, it strikes me that that's what we talk about here on Hey Wait a lot, which is just learning to be who you are around another person. Like
Yes.
learning to keep your energy in your own body while you are close to another person, and that allows for whatever the reality of the connection and relationship to come through. And I'm appreciating, one, how hard that is just in general to be in your body, and two, how exponentially harder that is when it's with another person and when it's linked to intimacy. I can imagine that feels like a really big ask.
It probably is a really big ask. And I think the answer really lies with just practicing on your own in a safe environment. Like the more you can practice being with yourself, and then you can start engaging it, like you're in a perfect position because you're taking it from the solo yoga practice or
Mm,
moment of like, okay, now I know what it feels like to be in my center, in my pelvis, in my body. Now I'm going to take it out into the world and talking to somebody. I'm going to stay in my body. And that's where you really shine in a magnificent way. And you teach people to do that really, really well.
mm,
And
thank you.
so it really is it's the same thing, but it gets harder because what happens to most people when they are in an intimate encounter, unless you just decide to not care that much anymore about some of the things that your head tries to tell you.
Which, great if that works. Hard to get
Yeah,
there.
I mean, it's like you start worrying about what your body looks like. You start worrying, am I doing things right? Or you start worrying, you know, about a multitude of things. Or, oh my gosh, I have to put the kids to bed. Or, oh my gosh, I have to make lunches. Or I'm so tired. Or, there's so many things that can get in the way of
Well, and I
the
think that's
moment.
in the conversations that I've had, or the books that I've read, podcasts I've listened to around sex, a lot of the times they're talking about more of the relational things that get in the way, right? Like your partner's not picking up the slack on their chores in the house, or you're the caregiver for everyone in the world, and the last thing you want to do is be sexy with your partner at the end of the day. But the thing that I don't hear talked about a lot is how your nervous system influences your willingness or capacity for pleasure. Like when I think about dysregulation, either you're too activated or you're too shut down. And
Mm-hmm.
it seems to me that neither of those places are places where pleasure and intimacy exist.
Right. Yeah. And I'm seeing that same thing. I mean, sexuality is one of the most complicated processes, which is why I'm so interested in it. That's another reason I'm super drawn to it, because I work a lot of times with people with chronic pain or trauma. I like when there's a lot going on and I can be like, okay, let's get to this piece of it,
Yeah.
And so it's biology plays a factor, which includes hormones and, cycles and times of your life. It also includes your nervous system, as you were just saying. It includes pain, which
Mm.
often gets ignored or plowed through. And then it's psychological, so all what your mind's doing. And then it's social, so relational. And so there's a lot of things that
There's
come
a
into
lot going
play.
on.
But because of what I do, I'm going to mostly be focusing on the biological part and the nervous system part, the being in your body part. Because yeah, arousal doesn't happen unless you can have a good baseline of a parasympathetic state. So that's where you want to start. It doesn't
Relaxed and at ease.
relaxed in your body, feeling good. That feeling.
Yeah.
And sometimes all it takes is a couple breaths or a few minutes of, stretching before you have a date or something to just bring you back, a walk
Mm.
around the block. Sometimes it just takes that to bring you back into your body. But then besides just that parasympathetic state, because that'll make you just want to go to sleep sometimes.
Yeah,
Depending how exhausted you are,
right. Like you're saying
you
to your
really
partner,
can't do
yeah,
that
that
anyway.
sounds kind of good, but sleep sounds a lot better.
Exactly. But to get you do need some of your sympathetic excitement to start to happen. But it only happens at a moderate level. If you're up at this higher level of sympathetic arousal, which is the mind spinning, everything's chaos, you don't feel safe, any of those types of things, you're not going to be aroused. It's just not going to happen.
This is what I think is so cool about looking through the lens of the nervous system is it takes away stigma and story and plants you really firmly in the science of what's happening in my body. So I'm hoping for the person listening, you can at least start to think through the lens of, the last few times that I didn't feel like I wanted to have sex with my partner. What was my nervous system doing
Mm-hmm.
in that moment? And what could I have done differently? So that's what I want to ask you, Lisa. For the person listening, what would be a place where they could start to create a connection to their body that would allow for them to know, do I feel open to arousal in this way?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest things are to do just a few different stretches, breath work, feeling yourself, whatever you like to do, things that bring you joy. Some people want to take a bath. Some people want to do, you know, as I said, go out in nature is a good one. There's lots of
Mhm.
different ways, but like if you know what relaxes your body, so you want to start from a state of relaxation. As we know, that doesn't always come if it is, especially like if you've got something on your mind or you need to talk to somebody or get something off your chest, that will be in the way probably. So maybe you need to do that first, have the conversation before, but you really just want to like get back into that state of relaxation, however you know how, and then be with your partner in that relaxed state and see what happens. And sometimes it's like there's a pressure there, so like maybe if you just decide, like let's say you're having a hard time, a good way to start is let's just hang out together and touch each other and be intimate with each other without any expectations of sex, and just
Mhm.
see where things go.
Well, and it also, as you're talking about that, I think of just practice being around your partner in a state of relaxation without them even knowing that's what you're doing and that you're like, you don't even have to think you're doing this for greater intimacy. Like, I'm going to do this afternoon so that we can have sex tonight. Like, just start to feel what it feels like to be in your pelvis, then to feel soft in your jaw and soft in your belly when you're around that person. Because I feel like I know in my own experience, sometimes I catch myself just being like, oh, I'm really relaxed right now. And I could totally get into having sex if I wanted to, but I kind of just want to feel what it feels like to want to and be open to it and not have to act on it. Because even that feels like it's the doing or the performing or the product, like I'm going to, as
Yes.
opposed to I'm just going to give myself permission to feel juicy and in my body next to this person that I could act on it with, but I don't have to.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, there's lots of evidence that as soon as you move towards goal orientation, arousal's gone. So that
Totally.
so that moves into like, the orgasm, like if people have a hard time orgasming sometimes, as soon as they start thinking about, oh, am I going to get there? Is it going to happen? Like it usually
Yeah.
gets in the way. So just being in pleasure, willing to just be in that relaxed state. And if you're, so basically arousal happens in that relaxed state with just a little bit of stimulus to start getting you revved up a little. Orgasm happens with sympathetic. It's a very sympathetic thing. Your heart rate starts to increase, and then your pelvic muscles contract when it happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a sympathetic side of the nervous system. But that place in between, where you're both relaxed and aroused, stimulated and relaxed, that is also sometimes known as the flow state, right?
I was going to say that sounds like flow.
It is flow. So I mean, I think everyone can agree that orgasms are great, but I think all the stuff that happens between arousal and orgasm is great. Like if you can be in that flow state and that's what I'll sometimes just do myself is I'll feel if I'm starting to get too high or too low in my body, and I'll titrate it during sexual play. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, and so it keeps me closer to that midline of that flow state where both those things are happening.
Do you find that that's something that people know to do or know to talk about with their partner?
I don't
Titrating.
think most people talk about much with their partner. Sadly, I think it increases with age. Actually, I think we get better at it as we get older because you're not as embarrassed, and you trust that you can have these conversations without everybody taking it personally all the time. But it's a hard conversation to have, especially if you've been with someone for a while and you've never had these conversations. You really don't want to hurt the other person's feelings if something isn't
Yeah.
working, or there's a lot of things that happen. So yeah, I don't think many people talk about it, but that's where those moments of like, oh, can you back off a little bit? Or, hey, can you ramp it up a little bit? Like you can have these conversations, or, like they can respond to what you need. And I'm telling you, most people who are in a partnership, I mean, I think even in casual encounters, I think most people want to have a good experience themselves, and they want the other person to have a good experience too.
Of course, but they don't want their shame to come up or to feel like I'm not enough or I can't please you. And it sounds like in what you're saying there, it isn't necessarily about a conversation. It's about be more not directed necessarily, but just give them the keys to the kingdom as you're going along. Like, ooh, I really like that. Or
Yeah.
can you slow that down? Or it's little almost like course correction.
Yeah, and and your body is going to change from moment to moment just because your nervous system changes from moment to moment. So there's going to be some days that you're like I want a lot of stimulation today, and it can be in any which way you can build the stimulation. It can be through your context and your environment. It can be through some people get into kink or things like that, but it can also just be like more aggressive physicality. It can be a lot of different ways to make it more that way. And then there's other times where you're like, I just really want to be in this gentle, slow flow, and I want things to be softer, and I'm feeling kind of sensitive, so you don't even really have to touch me much. Like there's a whole range, and it's going to change. And the only way, I mean, it's not the only way. We read each other all the time. And so like a lot of things that happen intimately are very intuitive, and you do play off of each other without even realizing it a lot of times. But if something isn't working, it saying something or asking for what actually does work usually helps.
Yeah. What about people who experience pain with intimacy and sex?
Well, Absolutely, the first thing, well, there's two major things they'll want to do. They'll want to go talk to one of their healthcare providers, um, depending on to check their hormones, because a lot of times there can be pelvic floor changes, not only with menopause, which is an obvious one and it's all over the place. I'm sure people have heard about this year. They just took the warning label off of vaginal estrogen for the
Yeah.
first time, even though they've known for, I think, 20 years that it's been safe. They finally have removed that label of warning that it's dangerous, and it's almost never dangerous. There's one very rare type of cervical cancer that I think it's a contraindication for, but otherwise it's completely safe. So finding out your hormones. So it happens during menopause, but it also can happen postpartum or perinatally. That you can have fluctuations if you take oral birth control pills. Sometimes people can have changes in their tissues because it does bind to hormones in your body. So checking that. And then the other part of what you want to do, if that's not the be all end all, if you don't get change with that, is to request to see a pelvic floor physical therapist and be evaluated, because there are so many different things that can create pelvic pain. I'm talking pelvic pain here. Pain in
Yeah.
general, you also want to
Yeah.
address because it keeps you in a highly revved state as
Well, I
well.
mean, I will be candid and speak from my own experience here that I had pain with sex for pretty much my whole adult life. And it came out at some point when we were doing work together, and you're like, we can do some myofascial release for your pelvic floor. And I was like, let's do it. And it was so immediately helpful. And I remember saying to you that I was crying because it was like such this huge release. And we determined it was probably from my years in gymnastics where I was falling on my tailbone all the time, and it had disrupted the tissue and there was holding patterns. And I remember saying to you about how many doctors I've told that pelvic exams were painful, sex was painful, and they were like, yeah, that's just how it is sometimes. And that nobody thought to say, well, let's just check out what's going on. And, like, so I just want to say to any woman who's experiencing pain, that is not something that you need to just assume, well, that's just what my body does. There could be something that's a very easy, I don't want to say fix, but an awareness or a shift that is very easy to create that no one said is possible for you.
Yeah, I want to really affirm sex is not supposed to be painful. Putting in tampons and getting pelvic exams is not supposed to be painful. And if it is, you should address it. It is not
Yeah.
normal.
So, what are some other things that you wish younger girls and women knew about their sexuality?
I think that the biggest things are that sex should not be painful,
Yeah.
and also that that they are normal. Like, I remember being being a teenager, and you just feel abnormal in every which way. You always think there's something that could be better or different, or all your friends are one way and you're something different. Like it's very common, but especially in the sexuality realm, um, we so it was something like 75% of people get their education, these young, like middle schoolers, get their education about sex from porn. And
Yeah,
and
I
that's,
believe that.
yeah, and there's not a lot of places to go for it, so I'm not surprised. But it has a lot of misinformation in it, and so you get the wrong idea about what bodies look like and what
Yes.
genitalia look like. You think that something's wrong with you in some way there. They don't ever talk about consent. They don't ever use lubrication. You need, like, which
Yeah.
that you basically, there's certain acts that take place all the time in this is mainstream, like the free porn that most people end up seeing. And you see things depicted that, like, these women are just like orgasmic immediately from wherever the guy puts his penis, basically. Like,
Hmm.
and that's not how it is, you know. And another one more fact that I want to throw out there too is that it blew my mind, but it was super validating, was that only like 30% of women can orgasm from penetration alone without any clitoral stimulation.
Wow.
And so that is like,
can we spread that to the masses? Can we
that's the thing I want everybody, boys and girls, to know.
Yes.
The men feel like they're failing,
Yeah.
and the women feel like there's something wrong with them, that they're broken in some way. And it's just not true.
No, no. Well, and the other thing that comes to mind is that sex isn't a performance. I think that's what comes through if all you know is from porn or what you've seen on a movie. I'm like, I watch movies and I'm always like, I have never done the thing where I'm like, like grabbing someone and falling across it. Like, I'm like, even me, I'm like, is there something wrong with me that I've never done that? But it's like, it's everywhere. And that it's like this, I can't keep myself off of you. And then it's this performance. And that's why I think so many people don't feel themselves and aren't in their body when they're doing it, is because we're so used to seeing it as this performance or the way that it looks. And so I'm wondering, how do you shift into being in your body in an intimate exchange?
I think what really is one of the more freeing things as a woman, especially, is most men really like seeing us in authentic pleasure. They
Mm-hmm.
really like that. And so when you know that, it takes away some of the performance
Mm.
anxiety or whatever. You don't feel like you want to perform anymore. You feel like, oh, if I feel good, they're going to get the feedback that's going to keep the energy going. Oftentimes, like if I'm feeling a little ramped up, or if I'm feeling like, okay, I'm out of my pelvis a little bit because I'm a little too much in my sympathetic state, I'll take some breaths. I'm like, I'm going to breathe down into my pelvis and feel down there again. And so I'll
Yeah.
actually move my energy up or down or wherever it needs to be. And then I'm a nerd in many ways. So like
Yes, you are.
I tend to do nerdy things everywhere, including there. But
How you do anything is how you do everything. You're a nerd in sex.
exactly. But like, so like if I find something that's like just a little bit like not painful, but like, what's that? Or something that's kind of numb, like I'm not feeling much right now. I like to stay curious with it and like, I'm just going to give this a second and just see before I change what's happening. Because sometimes there's something inside of there that like really releases and opens things up. So
Oh, that's interesting.
I do a lot of things that are like feeling what's happening in my own body when I get distracted.
Well, what I hear in that is that you have a practice of not letting yourself be in your head.
Yes.
Because what I hear in that is you could very easily go to, well, what's wrong here? Why am I not feeling something? What's he doing wrong? Oh my gosh, why is he touching me that way? Whatever.
Right.
And instead, you just stay, well, like your book, follow the feeling, stay with what's happening. And from that place, it can shift.
Yeah, and sometimes it shifts internally, and if it doesn't, then I have to say something or change something. That's when I know. But sometimes there's something really interesting going on that I'm not sure what's happening yet. But yeah, it is good. Like staying in the body mentally, like being mindful to the sensations that are happening is probably number one
Yeah.
um, hint
Well,
I
it's
can give people.
made me think of when I was in my 20s, I took a pole dancing class, and our recital was at a strip club in Portland, and it was open to the public, And right before the performance, the teacher said to us, if you ever feel like you're losing yourself, like you've, dissociated or you've gone up in your head, touch your body. She's like, because it will look so sexy and so hot, but that's not the point. It will make you feel you again. And I loved that. And I think about that too in sex. Like if I'm not there, well, I
Hmm.
can touch me.
Yes.
And that's
Yeah,
part
that's a
of them seeing my pleasure and me feeling me.
yes, absolutely.
I'm blushing. Um, so if we zoom out, then this is really about allowing more pleasure into your, not just your body while having sex. This is about allowing more pleasure into your life. So what do you see, either from your own experience or from working with people, that happens in someone's life when they let more pleasure into their body?
Well, I definitely can speak from my own experience is when you're in your body, in the present moment, in a flow state, it's like the most blissful, wonderful way to experience anything in the world.
Hmm.
And this sexuality field's a really, in an intimate experience is a really good place to play with that, because a pleasurable sexual experience is like, it's one of the only places we really give ourselves permission to let go and be in pleasure in our society. And so the more you can practice it there, take that outside into the world. And we don't value rest and pleasure and joy. And all I can think of with, like, if every person, but even if every woman gave themselves permission to feel good in their bodies, like, imagine what we would create from that. Most of the
Mm,
world that we've created has been out of fear and anxiety or anger, or, like, it's
mm,
fueled by other things than love and joy and bliss and feeling good. And if you're in that place while you're creating, I mean, you're going to create unimaginably awesome things. And that's what I've seen in my own
yeah.
life, is I feel like my creative process has been it's been a lot more fun. I'm not beating myself up all the time. I'm not pushing myself all the time, because I'm letting myself feel good.
As your friend and someone who's known you over the years, you've gotten softer.
Thank you. It's been a hard road to softness.
Yeah, right. That should be the title of your biography. Hard Road to Softness. Yeah. Yeah. Where can people find more? Because you have so many online offerings and you've got your book. So if you don't live in Ventura, California, where you can come see Lisa, where can they find more about your work?
You can find me at my website. So it's lisawestwellness.com. And most of my offerings are linked through there. My book, Follow the Feeling, A Roadmap to Emotional Freedom, is on Amazon. And I have courses on Teachable. Again, they're linked through my website. And then I have some forthcoming projects I'm working on about sensual embodiment and different practices you can do on a daily basis when you want to. I'm going to probably have several different things. As with anything I like to offer, I really hope that people can be discerning about what works for you and what doesn't work for you, and do the things that work for you. So I'm hoping to have that course out probably later in this year, and that will be on my website as well. Or if you already are like, I really want that course, you can send me an email as well. It's lisa@lisawestwellness.com.
Cool. And are you on social, Instagram?
Oh, yes. On Instagram, I'm at Lisa Yogini. Mhm.
It's making me think, I know this is maybe going off on a totally different path and tangent at the very end, but you and I both um, have a background in yoga and we're students of Eric Schiffman. And for those of you who aren't in the yoga world, Eric Schiffman's teaching was really all about find your yoga, like find the way that these poses come through your body, find the way that this energy of this shape feels right for you. And I think that's so evident in all the work that you do and all the teaching that you do, is that my experience of it has been that it's very accessible. And like I said at the beginning, with being on your table, it's very much about you have this skill of helping someone tap into what they already know and what they already can do for their own wholeness and healing. And I'm really excited for the upcoming course around how that comes through in relating to yourself in your sexuality.
Thank you. Yeah, Eric.
I know.
He's so great.
He's so good. I'd forgotten, when I picked up your book again recently, I'd forgotten that he had written the introduction to it, and I was like, that is so cool. I dedicated my master's thesis to him because it was all
Oh,
about how do you learn to be in your body so you can learn to follow your intuition and your knowing. And that was totally through practicing yoga and the way he taught it that I came to that in myself.
yeah. Me too.
We love you, Eric.
I love you, Eric.
Okay, so last question before you go. Um, what is a practice or a ritual that you have that helps you to stay with yourself in your body when you're around someone else? And it could be something when you're in an intimate setting. It could be when you're with a client. Like, what comes to mind for you is like a really potent way that you can track yourself when you're with others?
Well, I'm very much a sensate person. Like I'm a feeler in my body. And so as soon as I can bring my awareness back into what I'm feeling in the moment, especially if I can drop it down, like as you said, to the belly, to the
Mm.
pelvis, that usually brings me right there. Sometimes a breath too, like if I just change the way I'm breathing for a second, but mostly it's what I'm feeling. And if I feel that tightness or that I'm not feeling and I'm just thinking, then
Yeah.
it's just a matter of like, okay, settle back down. And I feel almost like my energy settles like silt into my body,
Mm.
and it helps me stay where I'm at.
It feels like one of the themes that's coming out in this conversation is awareness of yourself in your pelvis. That that's huge for experiencing pleasure, but also for just experiencing your grounded self. So I lied. I'm going to ask you one more question then. Um, given that that seems to be so central, is there a movement that a person could do? Like if they aren't as energetically sensitive or sensate,
Hmm.
is there a movement someone that could do that could help them create more awareness in their pelvis?
Yeah, you can either like rock it forward and back a little
Mm.
bit or circle it a little bit. Or if you want to get into your pelvic floor, you can do little like twitches of your pelvic floor muscle. So like mini kegels.
Mhm, mhm.
And that just sort of can be like, okay, yeah, there I am. There, I can settle right there.
Hello, hello. Are, are you in there? Yeah, yeah. So that pelvic bowl tipping, whether you're sitting or standing or laying down, even you can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just bringing motion back to that area. And also, fluidity is helpful. I like doing a lot of like circular, non-linear type things. The fascia
Mm.
responds well to that, but also so does Shakti, so does energy. And so when you're in a holding pattern and you're in your head, you're usually very rigid. So releasing the tension, if you do it in kind of a fluid way,
I mean, just watching your body do that, I'm like, oh yeah, I could soften.
it brings you
Yeah.
right back in. And it brings you out of tension and into relaxed state in your body.
So finding fluid movement, particularly in your pelvis, doing the things that bring you into flow. So
Hmm.
aside from sexuality, like what are the things that you do that make you feel like you're in that perfect balance of arousal and calm? And then anchoring back time and time again to what am I feeling in my body and like being curious about it, that there's nothing wrong with what you are feeling.
Yeah, and also for people who don't have that sense of a relaxed arousal or whatever, it's those moments when your heart's just kind of like, wee, like anything that makes you feel alive
Mm,
and relaxed and calm and happy at the same time. That's
mm.
flow.
Yes, I'm wishing the person listening has a wee moment very soon. And like when you finish listening to this podcast, like go move your body a little bit. Just even these last few moments, you could be moving your pelvic bowl and, finding your breath there and letting that take you into whatever aliveness is next for you.
Yeah, and with the pelvis thing, if you have a hard time feeling your pelvis, if your jaw is clenched, your pelvis is clenched. So that's another good
Oh my God, I'm so glad you said that because I
relaxation.
swear to God, every time it's one or the other. If I soften my jaw, I'm like, oh, there's my pelvis. Or if I can feel
Uh-huh.
my pelvis, it's like my face goes, bleh.
Yes.
Is there science behind that shit?
Probably.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of articles about it and stuff. I don't know research wise what's happened around the pelvis jaw connection, but there's definitely like anatomical similarities and
Yeah.
muscular connections and things. I'm not sure how much research is there, though.
Yeah. Well, I can tell from my own
But I
research.
definitely, I
It's
feel
real.
that it's true. Yes.
For sure. For sure. Well, thank you so much, Lisa, for being such a trustworthy guide in all of this. I really appreciate you coming to share this with us.
Thank you so much, Jay. It's my honor to be here.
Thank you so much, listener, for being here today. I hope something resonated with you and helps you to have a good experience of yourself in your life and your relationships, because you really do deserve that. And if someone came to mind while you were listening today, could you take a moment and share this episode with them right now? And if you haven't had a chance to yet, please leave a review for Hey Wait, because both of those things help new people find the show. And it means a lot to me to be able to reach and connect with new people around this work. With that, if you have an idea for a guest or a topic, or you have a question for me, feel free to reach out to me at Hey Wait with Jay on Instagram. Hey Wait is produced by Viv at First Click VA, and the original music is by Dalton Grant. And hey wait, before we go, I want you to remember, your insides matter, and the right people will meet you there. So stay with yourself. And I'll see you next time.